Let's blow this up.
Look alive, Bomb Squad. We are back for another installment of Let's Blow This Up. I am your host, Jason Cercone, and it is the Season 3 live stream finale. Glad you could be here. Good season, right? So let's bring this home in style. We're going to land this plane like true professionals. And as always, I've got my friends in the house with me tonight. We're going to do a little one-at-a-time introduction, and we're going to kick things off. I'm just going to go in order of how they are at the bottom of my screen. So first off, leading the charge and coming to the stage first, none other than Megan Shields of Chime House Media. Sup, badass?
What's up?
So
here I am.
Here you are. We figured out, at least some people figured out how to put subtitles on their names for some of us didn't have time to do that because they have to run this show. But nevertheless, Megan, welcome back to Let's Blow This Up. Next, coming on stage, none other than Miss Anna Xavier of the podcast space. What's up, Anna?
Hello. Excited to be here on season finale. Whoop, whoop.
Right? This is going to be a good time. And we're going to keep this party rolling by bringing none other than the man, the myth, the legend himself, the man who loves a well-done steak for no good reason whatsoever, Mr. Jay Franze of the Jay Franze Show.
I could use a steak, buddy. I could use a steak right now.
I could always use a steak, and we will talk about how we can make that happen after the show. Jay, welcome back, my friend.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
So we're going to keep things going. We've got a full house tonight. Once again, gracing us on the stage, none other than Traci DeForge of the Podcast Professionals Association. Hi, Traci.
Hello. So happy to be here.
Glad you could join us once again. And last but not least, none other than Simona Costantini of Volt Productions. What's up, Simona?
We're blowing it up, Jason. We're blowing it up.
Is that how you chose that over the jingle?
I mean, I also thought about, I get by with a little help from my friends.
Yeah, so as
all right, I'll
tradition.
Just make my exit.
No,
now.
you're fine. So
thanks for being here.
End scene.
Singing out of tune, notwithstanding, Simona, it's always a pleasure to have you here on Let's Blow This Up. So
there was tune, Jason. There was tune.
That was good. I'm sorry. I missed out on
tune.
the metronome before things got going. Those that have been with us for the full season know that this is our co-host collective, minus one. The only one that could not join us tonight was Mr. Marc Ronick because he's off gallivanting around Portugal or Spain or somewhere else in the world. He chose to be a world traveler instead of join us here on the live stream. The nerve of that.
Rude.
Right? Everybody send him.
I mean, they have internet there.
I know, right? Send him messages. Let him know. But it was obviously would have loved to have everybody here, but Mark had a pretty good excuse for not joining us. He's here in spirit. And his pinch hitter, unfortunately, that was going to join us, Nick Nelbach, does not have internet yet, so he's probably not seeing this either.
Anyway, Mark's number in the chat, and we'll all start.
Yeah, well, everybody just send him prank.
We'll blow his phone up.
Should we FaceTime him? Should we just FaceTime him?
We could do that. That might be a little distracting. So,
yeah, 100%.
We'll wait till the end.
Yeah,
he's
that's
probably
good.
waking up by now, even though Portugal is 8 hours away. So
okay,
he's probably waking up.
All right. Well, either way, he gets up super early to do his morning chat. He could have been here for this. Anyway, no, it's all good.
He sure does.
Well, as we know, Jay, you and I have been through this before. We did the season 2 kickoff with, I think, 5 people. And it's always fun to get this many people on a live stream, in my opinion, because that first time we did that was an absolute blast. And that being my first live stream, I was a little concerned, but we learned that it can be fun. And we want to make sure that we share the mic with everyone tonight so everybody can get a piece of this pie. Let's start off talking about season 3 of Let's Blow This Up. Now, of course, this being my show, I'm a little biased, but I think it went great. But I'd love to get some feedback from all of you because, as I said, the co-host collective was an idea brought to me by Jay. He said I can't remember what show you said inspired this idea, but you said that you had heard about or you'd seen a couple different hosts having different co-hosts join them on the show. And I love that idea. And I knew I had some people that I could turn to that could really make the conversation interesting. And that's really what spawned this idea to start the co-host collective. And I think for me personally, as I reflect on this season, as it comes to a close, this was my favorite part. It was a lot of fun to get to sit down with all of you in different combinations of hosts and tackle different subjects. And we kept it very limited with 30-minute deep dives, not trying to just sit and talk, because as we all learned, we could have easily gone on for hours. So I'd love to hear your feedback being a part of this. What were your thoughts? What could we have done differently? Would you have done anything differently? The floor is open.
Oh man. I don't think I would have done anything differently. I feel like I had such a wonderful time. I also feel like I was on like 75 episodes. No, I'm just kidding.
Really
So I hope everyone enjoyed it, because I feel like I was there a lot.
You put the co-host and co-host collaborative.
You really did.
I
the
mean,
best I could.
the jingle, someone had to sing it. Hello.
Well, yeah, someone's got to kick off with style. So Simona, you had to be there.
Had to. No, but I think overall, what I love the most, in all seriousness, of having co-hosted episodes is when they're co-hosted but conversational and actually have key takeaways in them, and not just like a tell me about yourself and, how long have you been in business for, and what's your top 3 tips, but like really actual genuine conversation where you can get into like the nitty gritty and talk about things that you wouldn't normally talk about. Because if we all sat on a Zoom together, we would talk about so many different things. Like Anna gave like 73,000 tips just on backstage before we even started. It was 2, but that's okay. It was perfect.
Two very
Two
powerful
really good
tips.
ones. Yeah, really good
It
ones.
felt like 73,000. Yes.
In a good way. But you don't get that if you're just doing question answer interview style, which is, so I love the approach of having it conversational, bringing different guest hosts on, but also everyone with different perspectives, because not all of us are producers, right? Not all of us work in the production space. So everyone has so much value to share. So I'll end there, and whoever wants to pop in.
Yeah, I think for me, I loved I had this collective and collaboration through the episodes, but it extended well beyond that. Like, it was great to see you guys that were there at Evolutions and connecting. And I mean, Simona, I will forever remember that your hair is all real, that it's not fake. There are, just for everyone's purposes, there's no extensions in that hair right there.
No, there's not. I actually just chopped a whole bunch of it off, and it still looks like I could make a whole other round of extensions for somebody else.
So there was that value. But no, I mean, just connecting in person, having the magic that was created here within these episodes, and then seeing how that played out in terms of connecting again, through the Podcast Professionals Association. Jen and I were so proud to be sponsors of the series. And then Jason had even parlayed into you writing an article for Pod News about the importance of collaboration and networking. And I think all the multiple extensions and omni-channel options that we had to connect and collaborate outside of it was just amazing. And it's not that I didn't see it coming, but I'm just really super grateful that it happened.
It's beautiful.
I'm grateful to have you a part of it.
For me, I liked playing podcast host because, I was a co-host, but I don't have a podcast. So it was fun to I've guested on some, but it was cool to be a co-host and play podcaster for
now you have the bug.
Moment in time.
I was going to say, you better strap in, because now you have the bug. Next year, you're going to have your own.
And listen,
Petition for Megan to have a podcast AI.
No, I will say this, Megan, and having listened to your podcast series that you did I believe as your lead magnet. I know I whatever it was that I first heard you host your own show. God damn it, you need to do it. You're good at it. Your show is really good.
I know. I don't have the.
We could have an intervention. We could use this
show,
episode. Yes, though we could have an intervention to how to set you up for your podcast, how to get over that obstacle of having to do it weekly. We've got strategies out.
I'm going to do a private podcast. I'm leveraging Otto in the private podcast realm at the moment.
We got to come back.
You know what? That still work, and it still takes a schedule. It still takes a blueprint. Still takes planning.
No, I want to come back to that. But before we go to the private podcasting thing that Megan's doing, I want to hear from Anna and Jay.
Yeah, I can go. It's been so fun, especially as experts. We always tell people, you shouldn't be doing a podcast by yourself if you feel like you're overwhelmed and you need a buddy. And I like to be part of this. This is also something that we're putting our money where our mouth is and say, hey, this is what can happen and how you can create content. And it's been such an amazing experience because you're such a great host where you really can carry the conversation easily. And so it feels like for us as co-hosts, we're just having a conversation that has been so amazing. So for me, 5 stars all around.
Would recommend.
5 stars.
Would recommend.
Thank you. And I will say thank you for the compliment, but I felt like I put myself in a co-host seat as well. I felt like this isn't my show in this case. This is your show as well. And everybody was getting equal time to talk and share their insights. And that's really, again, that was the real collaborative nature of that whole idea that we'll talk more. I want to run with it further. I think there's more that could be done with this, and we'll kick some ideas around here while we're live tonight. But Jay,
Sir,
your thoughts, my friend?
It's good to be back. It's good to be in the Bobby Brady spot. You know,
If you're not watching us live, ladies and gentlemen in the Bomb Squad, you're missing out on the Brady Bunch vibes. They are strong tonight. Everybody kind of look around and.
I'm going to take a different approach. I'm going to go with the negative side.
Sorry, I got to cut you off, Jay. What? You've never watched the Brady Bunch?
That either makes me feel old or you've just missed out. I'm not sure which.
I probably just missed out. I'll just exit stage left. I'm sorry, Jay.
Canadians, man.
If I had my ponytail on either side because my hair's so curly today, that I would have Buffy tails, and you would get that reference if you had watched the show.
Sounds cute.
All right. Apologies,
Jay, go ahead.
It's all
no
you.
worries. I'm going to take a different approach. I'm going to go negative. Everybody shared something positive. I think it wouldn't be the same, Jason. Sorry. I don't think they were long enough. I think by the time we got into the groove of a conversation, I think.
Yeah, I know. I didn't have enough content to edit with this whole 35 episode season.
Right.
So let's just make those longer.
But I think if we had more time, at least an hour, hour and a half, 6 hours would be good.
Yeah.
But the conversations could have gone a little longer.
Buzzsprout's real cheap too.
Yeah, it is very cheap. But I think that would have allowed us to get a little deeper and probably a little bit more specific on some of the examples. But other than that, I mean, the conversations were great. I listened to everybody's episodes. I mean, it was very good.
I don't disagree. I mean, the whole idea of it being half an hour was the fact that each episode had its own length. Like, these are an hour. The solos are 15 to 20. I wanted those to be half an hour. And really the idea was, let's just dive right in. Like, we started off tonight screwing around for the first 5 minutes. Not really what we did in those co-host collective episodes. It was, here's who we are and here's what we're talking about today. Let's do this because we only have half an hour. And I try to stick to that as tight as possible. I knew, Jay, both of ours went like 35 minutes because I knew damn well we weren't going to be able to stick to those confines, but that's okay.
I don't even think those 5 minutes were enough, buddy. Not even enough time to talk about a steak.
No, I don't like talking about steak with you. You're never right.
Well,
you like some meat. You like some well done, you guys. That's
you're not wrong because it's a bit more well done than necessary.
What?
A well done steak, it's a little bit more well done than I personally would like.
So you're agreeing with Jason. All right.
A little bit. This frame of the episode is agree.
Oh, shit. I forgot Jay had those buttons.
That is hilarious.
And well timed. All right. No, and again, like I said, this is something that I had so much fun doing. And to speak to your point, Jay, to take it to another level, perhaps extending the time frame. I know it's been talked about privately amongst a couple of us, and I think me and Mark talked about it through text. This idea of the co-host collective doing an actual standalone podcast on its own, and it doesn't have to be about podcasting. It could be about whatever we want it to be about. I love this perspective of different people in the host seat every week. I don't know if it has legs or not. Your thoughts?
I think it does. I mean, I like it. I like the idea of it. The only thing is, like you mentioned, is getting everybody together and on a schedule. I think trying to plan it out that far in advance is tough. I would rather see it planned out like a week or week and a half at a time.
Well, and it's if you do
a
live
not late
stream,
at night.
Well, yeah, I know, Megan, it's past your bedtime. If it's a live stream,
I always complain.
I know. Badass has to be in bed by 7:30. Anyway, so
that says
how she wakes up so bad.
Badass.
That's right.
I mean, it's one of those things of format. Do you do live stream with it? Do you do pre-recording so you don't have to worry about being up past your bedtime and then you could run it live? Or do you just run it like a regular podcast? I don't know. There's plenty of potential ideas to make it work. I just think the format is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Something to talk about.
I like the idea that everybody gets to share it from different points of view because that's, even though this is something that we do regularly, I'm assuming we all do this regularly, and learning from each other is fun. It's good to hear different approaches on the same things that we do all the time. Simone, I listened to your show just yesterday on my way into work, and each time I listen to one of our shows, I learn something new. So I feel like I think that's the benefit of us being here, is getting different points of view on these things.
Thank you for listening. I really appreciate that. And also, I was thinking the same thing as you were saying that as a solo podcaster, because I used to have co-hosts on my show, and I would theme every single month. That's actually pretty much, well, I did a month with Jason, a month with Megan, a month with Anna, and getting to go and dive into, I know, but I don't think we knew each other at the time.
That was a while ago.
It was so long ago. It was like over a year
years
ago.
ago.
Based for over
Yeah.
10 years.
Simone, you
Good luck,
dropped the
Nothing
ball
to
here.
say to that. Well, you know what? I have no idea. I literally don't.
That's
even
your fault, Tracy, for not reaching out to Simona.
Yeah, you should have
were
Oh my
here
God, you're
first,
right. You
so-
should have. What was
pitched
it?
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
pitched me.
sorry.
Oh, it's
I'm
okay.
Southern, so I'm just going to go ahead and say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
And I'm
Bless
Canadian.
your
I'll send it
heart.
back to you. Bless your heart.
Bless your
but I
heart.
was,
It's the
But I
time
was-
zone change between Canada and the U.S. It screwed everything up.
Yeah.
it's very confusing. Although it's Eastern time over here too.
I'm
so
just,
whatever.
yeah. I was hoping that would be caught.
That
My
border,
sarcasm
you know?
would get caught up there.
Yeah, that'll get you every
I
time.
guess it didn't. This is what happens when we don't watch the Brady Bunch as a child.
You know
Yeah.
what? It's okay. It is. I will
It's
catch
not
up.
okay.
And this
You
time,
have to go back and check it out.
I will. For the next live that we do, I will have watched a few episodes. But what I was going to say is having a solo podcast and being a solo podcaster in this current moment, I find I get really bored. And I was telling this sort of to Anna the other day, like I'm just getting bored of the same content over and over again, because I feel like, it's about podcasting specifically. And I always want it to be valuable, and I want people to take something away from it. So I think when you sit with new people in different spaces, doing different things, it sparks something new within you. And every time we get to sit down and have a conversation, I don't know how you all feel about this, but for myself, I feel like it just reinvigorates my love for the medium even more, right? It's like you have a whole new conversation, a whole new angle, a whole new thought process. And then you just kind of like, oh my gosh, I really love this,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm with you there, and that believe me, as a big proprietor of solo podcasting, love it. Plan to keep doing it. A lot of what happens here on this show in the future will be surrounded by solo podcasting, but this element can't go away. I love getting the opportunity to connect with other people, like-minded individuals like all of you, and sharing ideas and having conversation and seeing where that goes and seeing what new ideas that might make happen. It's not that can't happen in a solo environment, but there is still something to this. And that's why I knew tonight would be fun, getting this whole group together in one room, because we all had these great conversations outside of the room. At least maybe it was either one-on-one or three of us at a time. But now we're all here and we can throw things at each other and see where it goes. And that's hard to replace, hard to duplicate.
There's something to be said about a solo show versus a conversational style like this too. I mean, I think they both have their place, and I enjoy listening to solo podcasts, but I would never want to do one. So
Yeah.
I mean, I do. I enjoy when I can listen to somebody who specializes in an area, educate me. I feel like it's a one-on-one experience. But for me, when I host a show, I would rather have something more like this, have multiple people on, and get to talk to people.
You know what's
Yeah.
interesting about that? I want to add in. I'm sorry, Tracy. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Oh, bless your heart.
I know.
Yeah, so, well, Michael bringing up a good point. I also, we're going to bring up Tiffany's comment too. Listen, I'm going to go with
Tiffany.
Megan on this. Going to bed early is badass at this age. At this stage of my
Yeah.
life, I am
First
totally.
of all, it's
I'm
less about going to bed early and more about I don't work late.
Oh, boundaries.
boundaries,
Beautiful.
yeah.
We
Okay.
love a boundary.
But do you love this? If you love this, it's not work.
Mm.
Oh,
Bullshit.
yes, but it's still boundaries.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's coming from a recovering work
Suck
addict.
on that.
If you can still love it, it's still work.
Yeah,
No,
that's
they're
horseshit.
And notice I did not say recovered work addict. I said recovering work
I'll-
addict.
well, but listen, even 12 weeks of doing these live streams, I think that's my sweet spot. I'm as much as I love doing this, it is nice
What,
to
being
know
a work addict?
well, no, it's nice to know this is a little break. I got a little break coming after this, And
Oh yeah, no, to set yourself
Right?
up for success. Yeah, well, you have to take. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why people pod fade is because they underestimate the time, bandwidth, and resources it takes. And when I say resources, I'm not necessarily talking about simply financial. I'm talking about what it sucks out of you, to be ongoing and consistent. And I think that's why having a good strategy. We were saying that with love before, Megan, but it's true. Whether you're doing a private podcast, a solo podcast, a collaborative, like it's all about the strategy and the blueprint that you set yourself up for success, no doubt. And what I was going to say was that, Jay, to your point, was we actually in Producer Podcast in 2025, we actually reframed our packages for our clients in launch and in what we call cadence mode, which is regular release frequency, to the strategy is long form and short form combined, because it takes that to really grow your show organically. And it also provides opportunities for you to be a host and get perspectives from a guest, let's say, for example, for long form, but then you can showcase your thought leadership and your expertise in the short form. So they really do serve two separate objectives. And I think it's important to honor both of them. And I love, again, the whole mixing it up, I think is great for your audience. It keeps them engaged. It keeps them coming back, but you have to have a strategy. That's the way you can set yourself up for success.
I think that's the key, is the variety keeps people engaged. I mean, I try to do the same thing on my show. I do 2 days a week, and one of them is an interview, and then the other is a news style. So just having a little bit of variety, I think, works for us, and it keeps me more excited about doing the show as well.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
That's key. So let's talk about.
I was going to say, to Michael's point, raising the vibe of the planet does not work, but I will tell you, the energy you bring to the mic is the most important thing you can do as a host or a guest, and that is all about raising the vibe. So 100%, yes. Like you are literally responsible for the energy you bring to the mic, and it can set the tone. It can change a person's day. The information that you put out into the world can change their life, literally. And so it is, I think we are all raising the vibe of the planet as podcasters, no matter if we're doing lifestyle comedy, business, branded content, whatever it is that we're doing, we're changing the world one voice at a time, and which is why I love this industry so much.
Amen to that.
Thank you, Michael.
Where's the mic drop?
Yeah, Tracy.
Is there a sound effect?
You got a sound for that, Jay?
Jay, you got something for that?
I could work something up. It takes too long. How about this?
There we go.
Good enough?
Yep, it worked.
That did
Good
it.
old DJ horn.
I should label those at some point so I know which buttons I'm going to hit.
Yeah, that could have been very embarrassing.
Fast button hitting.
I don't know.
Or like a duck, like.
Well, Megan, tell us
I don't
about
have
the
cool
new
ones.
private podcast venture you've got going on.
Yeah. So, probably like a year or so ago, I connected on Instagram, as I have, I think, with most of you guys, and how we met in the first place. So I slid into Simona's DMs, and I think Anna's, pretty much everybody. But anyways, another
Your
person
husband
whose
found me
DMs
on Tinder, but it's okay.
I know. Well, I think it's
That's making me
Grinder,
reach for
but
that
either
censor
way.
button.
Oh, is it Grinder? I don't know.
Anywho, me either. I don't know. But anyways, so another person's DM that I slid into is Kate Howard. And so she runs Amplify Boutique. She launches podcasts, produces podcasts, manages podcasts. And she and I, I'm like losing light here. Oh, Lord, that's way too much light. Whoopsies. Anyways, we became fast friends, and she has been building private podcast funnels for her clients for years. So we work with a lot of same people, business owners that have programs, memberships, courses, that kind of stuff. So she helped them create a private podcast that they can leverage. You do X amount of episodes. So you record it once, and then you're putting people into it. And then at the end, you're selling into a course, program, membership, whatever it is. But the missing piece was really like the continued traffic, which is where I come in. And so we had been talking for a while about like collaborating on a fully done for you service that is the full soup to nuts private podcast funnels. So we also partnered with other clients of mine, Lindsay and Nora at Hello Audio, because they are the platform that is doing the most work with the private podcasts, people that are leveraging private podcasts. And they're just phenomenal. Their platform is fantastic for it. And that's really who they're focusing on serving and leaning into the private podcast space of this industry. And so we all came together to create this soup to nuts done for you private podcast funnel. And so I will, of course, bring my brilliance on the ads side and feed people into that funnel. Kate helps and strategizes on setting it up, the episodes that are going to go with it. We'll build an email funnel on the back end to get people into the program. And it's an asset then you can have in your business that can really run, behind the scenes. So you get to leverage audio without the commitment of a weekly show, which I think is really powerful. I think a lot of people want to do that. And again, Tracy, you talk about pod fade. Like, I think it's, people vastly underestimate what it takes to run a podcast and to do it successfully as an asset in their business. And so this allows people to leverage the medium without, the showing up every single week after week after week, if they don't want to take that on at this point, like me.
I'm all about that.
That's one thing that
It's
one thing that we started to talk about for Northflow, which is the other company that I'm a part of. And that was that's something that we're working on right now to bring leads into the business, even though we do have a podcast, but it's not like we do have a podcast for that business, but this private show would be a more targeted way to generate leads that are more specific to the business. And so I feel like that's the difference, but I'm really excited to test it out and to try it out. And I just feel like it just shows how much the podcast industry itself has changed. Even from 2018, when I first joined it, it has changed so much since its early days. And there's so many different layers now to what you can do, what you can create, the types of shows, how it's distributed. But dare I go and ask and say, with all of these additions, does it change podcasting overall? Does it change what it means to have a podcast?
I think it does. And I'm totally okay with that. I think that's what evolution is. Something evolves, it changes, and it takes on a new layer here, there, and everywhere. And there's absolutely nothing to be afraid of. Or so again, if you don't want to embrace something that's new in that medium, you can still succeed by doing it the way that you have been. If you do want to look at it a different way, then great. There are different ways to leverage this medium, and all mediums. That's why I look at podcasting from that different perspective as well. When I brought Bombtrack Media to life, my whole thought process was not about helping someone launch a weekly podcast. I feel that's something that can be done. And of course, if you have the time, that's great. But working with businesses, they don't have that time. It's not in their mindset to wake up one day and be like, you know what? My business is missing. It's a full-time podcast. I want to become a full-time podcaster. No one is thinking like that when they're running a business. But at the same time,
some people are, but they don't have any idea how to get from A to B to C to D.
Yeah, no one is a broad way to say it. But for the most part, that's not the primary objective. The primary objective is, how do I grow my business? How do I get more customers?
Get visibility. Get leads.
How do I get my name out there? The podcast medium can help you do that. But if you don't understand how to build that strategy, what kind of time goes into doing it, then you probably won't succeed. But there's so much that can be taken on from this if you do it right.
Right. But I think the other thing to consider is, who said that you had to do a weekly podcast to get visibility, leads, and sales? You don't.
100%. I mean, Tracy, there are some people that do. There's some of the
there's some people
say you do, and it drives me fucking crazy.
But I think that's a myth buster, because
1000% it is.
I mean, as long as you are consistent with the cadence of which you release, and you have really good quality content and good quality production, and really that is not a 1 and a 2, at most it's the same, then you can get good traction. It's how you repurpose that single episode that's so important, because that one really good quality episode can be repurposed into short forms, you can get that cadence. You can embed special segments inside your one full-length episode. You can extract that special segment out, like Salad with a Side of Fries, Jen's podcast, Nutrition Nugget. It used to be in her long form. Now it's extracted out as a short form. I mean, there are ways to get that frequency up and consistent and sustainable without having to produce or record or manage an independently produced episode every single week. So I just want to shout out that's, I mean, I think I may have used the word strategy already about 14 times since we've been live, but that's where a good strategy really comes into play, because it's not how often you do it. It's how good are you at it when you do it, right?
Can I tag onto that for a second, Jason?
No, we got to move on. I'm kidding. Go ahead, Jay.
No. Just real quick, the unpopular stance, I'm sure, once again, is I think we're tying ourselves too much to a medium and too much to a term. I don't think we need to call it a podcast. I don't think we need to be saying this is a podcast. If we're marketing a business, this is just one way, one avenue of marketing a business. If we're putting a show together, it's a show, whether it goes out on YouTube, whether it goes out as a podcast or so on. I prefer this medium personally myself, but it's just one way of doing it. So as Tracy's saying, if you're taking one show, one episode, and you're repurposing that to different areas, it's just a matter of how you're getting that word out. So if you're taking a shorter clip and putting it on YouTube, then that's the way your client found you. That's the piece of marketing that worked for you. But it doesn't have to be referred to as a podcast, or it doesn't have to be referred to as just this one medium. It's just how we take the content and where we split it up. We never get hung up in social media. We don't sit there and say, well, I'm an Instagram show. You have Instagram, you have TikTok, you have all of the different platforms. You're creating the same content, you're just distributing it across the different platforms. And I think if we don't get too hung up on titles, I think this would fall into that same category.
That's a good point. And we had a couple of conversations in the co-host collective about we'll call it the addition, the rise of video. And there's still, Tracy, I know that this is one of the soapboxes that you will climb on and talk about what video means in podcasting. And I think that, again, I love it. And I think that there is so much value in it, but at the same time does not say that you can't just do an audio podcast and succeed. So it really comes down to what fits your message and your motives, and that's how you carry this out. So what Megan's doing with the private podcasting, I could see how that can play a strong role in a business for sure.
I was on a webinar yesterday it was how podcasting connects for published authors to get an ROI. That was the topic of the webinar. And one of the attendees that was on, like, attending the webinar posted in the thread that and I quote, "I ditched my podcast to be a YouTube creator." And I did not acknowledge that direct message. Like, I did not call her out in that moment, but in the context of what we were talking about, I reminded everyone that the power of audio is not to be underestimated, that in a lot of cases still today, that it's 2 times to up to 10 times more downloads happening on audio versus video. And in a lot of cases, it can be easier to grow an engaged audio audience than a YouTube channel, simply because of screen fatigue and portability, if nothing else. Yeah. And so I worked that into my conversation in the webinar, and she came back in the thread and she said, "Did you mean video gets more downloads than audio?" I was like, "No, that's not what I meant."
That's really interesting, because I'm seeing the complete opposite. I'm seeing it's actually really, really difficult to grow an audio feed. And myself, clients across the board, everyone who's on YouTube is getting way more traction on YouTube than on the podcast side. Yeah.
But even at Evolutions, that's what the Signal Insight study and everything that they were talking about from the stages is how audio is still outperforming video. But I love hearing the counterpoint to that. So
that's like the one challenge that I have with like conferences in general. And dare I say this because it's live, but I'm going to say it anyways. I'm going to throw it in. Especially bigger conferences. Sometimes I find, just depending who is teaching the content, they are not on the ground, boots on the ground with creators every single day. And so they talk about and share things based off of what they see. And like, of course, you do studies and you do, you're going to do surveys and all that, but that survey is a very small sample size compared to the whole, the whole industry and all the creators and all the people that are creating podcasts and YouTube videos and this and that. So I just like, it's interesting because I like to see the trends of where data is going and what it's showing, because there's so much value in data, and Anna researches so much. So maybe you can play into this a little bit too, but I just feel like sometimes I'm like, do you actually know what is actually happening and what people are really doing? Or is it a sample size of people that you brought in to do this study to like help it? What?
To skew the data that you want, the results you want.
Anna, do you have thoughts?
Yeah, I was gonna top on that. So there's a couple of things that I don't think that in the US are talked enough about, and that is data consumption. In the US, most of us have data access. Like basically we can be on our phones and we don't worry about consumption at all, right? We have unlimited data. But if you go to different countries, there's a lot of countries that have app limits. So basically your phone has limits and says on YouTube you have 2 gigabytes of data per month, but on Facebook you can only have an X amount of data. And so that will in some way affect behaviors and audience consumption, because they're like, well, it's not based on how they prefer, it's more based on what they can access. And so I find that because my audience is global and I have a lot of clients from different places, and I'm originally from Portugal, I always see through the lens of like, okay, what's the non-American version of this? What's the rest of the world? For instance, in Africa and Asia, they have a lot of apps that we don't have here in the US. So I find that a lot of the data, to your point, Simona, on conferences, it depends who is talking. If it's like, of course, sounds profitable. If it is Edison Research, of course, it's going to be slightly different. But I agree that sometimes you're going on stage and you're going to conferences, and who's on stage is talking about kind of gut feelings with bigger creators or data that comes from their sampled audience that is completely different than what the regular creator has, right? And so I find that we have to think about user behavior for our specific audience. There's a lot of people that consume audio on YouTube. It's basically about the portability, but it's more about the fact that they normally go on YouTube regardless. And so we need to be asking better questions of our audience and not assume, because our audience may be completely different than someone else, right? So I think that that's like very, very varied and sometimes hard to make like blank statements. But something that we were talking about earlier, though, is the medium, right? And I find that there's one segment of content that is really underutilized and that I don't see it talked enough, but is like reading your own content. Like Sounds Profitable does this in a lot of their articles, where you have Tom Webster reading the article, doing a video to the camera, like live to camera, or he's doing an audio version. And I think that the portability that Traci was talking about, how many of our clients have incredible content that is really performing. They're not looking at their website analytics, and that could be really turned into content. So we're talking about, to Jay's point, going on Instagram, on YouTube, blah, blah, blah. But like, how many of us don't look at our newsletters that had stellar opening rates, our articles that consistently, like I have multiple articles on my website that rank #1 on Google. I have done plenty of episodes that cover those so that I can like basically tap onto those pages and say those pages that are like, I get a lot of new listeners through that strategy. And so I think sometimes is really saying like, okay, like this is a playground. Like what can I create instead of just going, okay, list what is working, what is everybody doing, check, let's go, because that's an easy to replicate format. So playing around, I think it's important about like the formats, and people like us, we can experiment a lot and share give ideas to our audience.
And that makes it fun too,
right?
It's trying new things to see what works, and then you might find something that maybe other people are doing it but you enjoy it, and it keeps you engaged in the process. Therefore you're going to keep creating and coming up with great stuff. So
Well, and I think cross growth opportunities too, because what you were saying reminded me, like when you release a blog post on your website, if you record it and embed a YouTube media player into your blog of the content, then you're gonna meet people where they are. Are they gonna read it? Are they gonna listen to it? Are they gonna watch it? But that also, if it's connected back to your YouTube channel, for those that are interested, Finn wants to make an appearance. There he is. Finn is my golden retriever. For those of you listening, not watching, he just jumped up and said hello. But anyway, my point is that then you're optimizing for SEO for your website. You're driving traffic to your YouTube channel. You're also giving people options of how they want to consume the content, and it's really, I mean, and I want to kind of clarify what I was coming back to when I was mentioning the webinar yesterday. My point was not to disparage anybody about whether or not they choose to be on YouTube or they choose to have an audio podcast. My point really of all of that is that don't ditch your audio podcast, because you're doing the work. So
100%.
expand across the platforms. I felt the need to really go back and close the loop on what I was saying, because I wasn't in any way disparaging this attendee as much as I was trying to make a point of don't choose one or the other. If you are creating content, optimize your platforms for the people who want to listen on Apple or Spotify or on another app globally. Or if you want, like in the chat, we've seen listening to YouTube. It's a great discoverability platform for audio or video because it's the second largest search engine owned by the first largest search engine. So, you just want to be able to be where people are. Sometimes people will start listening on Apple if they're walking, and then they'll come in their house or if they're working from home and jump on YouTube. So you just don't want to ditch one for the other, I think was my codependent, people-pleasing need to close the loop on that.
Well, you had mentioned. Well, I'm looking at. I've got Michael's comment here on the screen, and I want to address this because I'm not quite sure how to answer this. And if anybody else that's reading this here knows what that means, can we provide an answer for this?
How would you measure if I am using YouTube audio only unless they're tapping my camera? I can't see the rest of the comments.
That's the whole comment.
I do that all the time.
Well, because he said his YouTube consumption is mostly audio, walking, etc. And then we were talking about 2 to 10 times downloads on audio versus video. But I think that data is reflecting audio only platforms.
But that's a paid. Isn't that a paid feature of YouTube? You can pay to just you can have that. You can turn your screen off, have your phone in your pocket, but still consume.
YouTube Premium does that. Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah. It still goes to the same place, though.
Yeah, it
right?
still counts as a download. Yeah, unless I guess you access the podcast playlist feature on YouTube, which is a completely different. I mean, if you're just
right,
but it still goes into all the analytics. All the analytics still go back to the same place, and it'll tell you where people are listening to the content. So if it's through a playlist or what have you, it'll tell you where, but it doesn't break it down versus audio versus video. I'm sorry, Jay. Did you want to add?
I was just going to say you get YouTube Music, and then you've got YouTube itself. So YouTube Music is going to be audio only. And then you've got YouTube itself where you can play a video. And like Jason said, if you have the premium account, you can shut the phone off, put it in your pocket, and you can still walk around and listen to something without watching it. And I think that's what Michael's referring to, is when you're listening to a video, but you're not actually watching it. So it's truly being in the audio podcast while playing a video. So that means the metrics are going to be skewed. So, and I do that all the time. I mean, when I was at work just today, I was listening to a podcast, but it was listening to the video that was on YouTube. So, but the phone's in my pocket, I got my earbuds in my ears, and I'm listening to a video.
And even adding a layer to that complexity. For instance, my brother-in-law does this where I always thought this was really interesting as user behavior. He will have the TV playing content on YouTube. He's not paying attention, but he likes to have the moving action. So if you're looking at the data, and this is again why it's important to talk to people, to your audience. If you're looking at the data, you'll be like, oh yeah, the living room setting, everybody is loving this, but are they actually watching, right? And that's some of the things. You can have video all you want, but if someone is in the kitchen, I have a friend who loves watching my show when she's cooking. So she's like, I'm not really looking at you, but I like the fact that, again, it's moving and action. Again, it's how much does that really matter? If it's where they are, to Tracy's point, if that's how they're there, let's have that. And I just want to mention one thing. there's a lot of parallels that I find with like the trends that everybody like talks about. And because I work in marketing, I draw a lot of parallels between social media and podcasting and like how people behave. And everybody, that's the one thing that pisses me off. Everybody just goes, hashtags don't matter. Drop the hashtags. And then 6 months later, 1 year later, like hashtags are back again and no one has been using hashtags. And I'm like, if it doesn't hurt your reach, if it doesn't add too much to your workload, why would you drop a specific behavior that could bring you, like, or an action that could bring you new people? So like hashtags, keywords are the two ways that people find content on social media. Like when we're looking at posting the show, why would you drop your audio only content if that's something that you know? Like even today, I need to screenshot that. Somebody liked a post that I posted in 2022 through the hashtag. And I'm like, yeah, it's random, but I'm like, again, are those the basic things? Like, why are you making decisions? Are you basing them on like hasty decisions? The studies that are recommended, like, do they make sense for you to make those decisions based on that data, on those contexts?
Well, Megan, I know you. Yeah. Well, Megan, you and I have talked about this before, and I know I heard you on Jan Ditchfield's podcast talking about this. That many people make decisions based on what they feel, not on actual data that they've found. So that could speak to that very strongly.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think a lot of people just don't get in the data like they should.
Or get in it too much. That's the other thing. Like having a really healthy mindset around your metrics is incredibly important, because depending on what your end game is for your podcast, what your definition of ROI for your podcast is, the quality of your downloads is often really even more important than the quantity. And I mean, if I have a soapbox right now, I think that's it, because I've already beat the audio versus video soapbox to death. So, but I mean, having a healthy mindset around your metrics is it's just everything, because you will make yourself a crazy person if you are just constantly looking at it, reviewing it, obsessing over it, making shifts and changes. You've got to give changes enough time to breathe, enough time for your audience to embrace them and decide if they like them or not. You've got to give the keywords enough time to actually do what they need to do, and the hashtags and all of the things. Like, just everybody needs to take a beat. Like, just let content grow and create and keep creating and be consistent, because if you're consistent and you're putting out good content, you will grow. But you just also need to identify what is your end game, what are you going for, and if it's conversions, then just make sure you've got a really good call to action in your content, because even if you have 1 million downloads, if you do not tell people how to continue the conversation with you after they have engaged with your content, it doesn't matter if you have 1 or 100 million. They don't know what to do after it. So that's my soapbox, and I'm standing on it.
And even Tracy, what you're saying about there's the call to action and there's the content itself, right? Like, what's the point of having 30, 50, like have a weekly podcast if you never talk about your services? Like, if all you do is having guests on your show, I find that people really get focused on like, oh, I have to hit 200 episodes, 300 episodes, and that's when I'll see ROI. And you're like, that like you have not even mentioned that you offer services in like 50 episodes ago. Like, I find that like, again, looking at the metrics is like, yeah, like, oh, put out content, like that will come. I'm like, no. So like, so many people look at the wrong metrics to your point.
Yeah, true story. So we did a podcast audit on a consultant who worked with 7-figure businesses, and her offer is a 5-figure offer to work with her. She'd been podcasting for at least 3 years. We recommended one fine-tuned call to action integrated into the beginning of her show, where she actually said what it is that she did, which was work with 7-figure entrepreneurs.
Nice.
The very next, when that episode released, with that release, she closed a new client on that 5-figure package. But here's the kicker. The client said to her, I've been listening to your podcast for years. I never knew how you could help me.
Wow.
I never knew how you could help me.
Let's take that to another level, because like Anna said, it's important to have your content and be everywhere that somebody could possibly find you. A hashtag from years back, somebody just stumbles upon it, and that's a great thing. But if we focus more on the audience themselves versus the metrics are important and I use them every day. But if we focus on the audience and what the audience wants and where that audience is going to be, I think you'll find where you should be focusing your time a little bit better than just following a metric. I mean, I had a leadership show and it went strong on LinkedIn, and I can tell that by my numbers for sure. But the audience engagement was just higher on LinkedIn. And now that I do an entertainment style show, I can tell my audience engagement is higher on Facebook and on Instagram than it would be on other platforms. So if we just think about the audience themselves, where they might hang out, and I think we'll have a better, I feel like I have more success doing it that way than I do trying to follow a metric.
I love that. And if I could add also in
Michael feels the same way.
yeah,
Simona.
exactly. Exactly. And the other thing that we could add in also is the idea that, people will learn about your show, about your content, about what it is you do, and all of the things, right, through your marketing strategy. But one of the things that I see creators do often is just taking any type of content, any type of post, any type of quote that doesn't have much significant, I don't want to use the word significance because it's not really the right word, but pulling it kind of out of the middle of nowhere where that
Without
quote doesn't
context.
really make, without context. Exactly. And so, you put so much time into creating your show, make sure that the messaging that you're sharing on the platforms where your audience is, make sure the messaging actually aligns with in a powerful way. You know what I mean? Like,
Keep
I'm
the
sorry,
brand
guys, I'm
consistent.
tired. It's been a long day, but making sure that your message
No
Those two
excuses.
Jason.
No excuses.
Okay.
Megan's got her pillow out. She's ready for bed. She's like,
Sorry,
what the
young
hell?
Jamie son. Yeah.
Listen, Megan and I were
I'm
roommates.
ready to watch Clarkson's
We were-
Farm.
Nice.
I
Where
don't
the
even know
hell
what that
that
is, but I'm here for it. Should I add it to my
What?
list?
You don't watch?
I
Nobody
know.
watches Top Gear. We have no Top Gear people in here.
I
No.
watched one
You don't
time.
have time
Isn't
for
that the
TV
British?
when you're producing podcasts. See?
Yeah,
No,
Megan,
evidently.
get
Well,
into production,
anyways.
Megan. You're never going to want to
Top
consume
Gear's a
anything ever
great
again.
Well, speaking of producing podcasts, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't congratulate Anna on her 100th episode.
Yeah.
And
Congratulations.
just
That
took
is no small
place.
feat.
right? Like, we know the
Yeah.
statistics that are out there. You've obviously bucked that trend big time. Tell us about the live stream, how everything went, and really all the fun that went into
Aw.
getting to 100 episodes.
Thank you for the love. You know what? It was something that I really wanted to talk about was hitting 100 episodes. Only about 5% of people actually hit that milestone. But I want to talk about, like,
Crazy.
sometimes as experts, we feel like we have to have it all figured out. And what happened to me halfway through getting to 100 episodes is that I lost the joy in podcasting because I was following all the best practices. So there's something to be told about when you're too much into your expertise. And so it was really something that I wanted to talk about on the 100 episodes. Like, how do you pivot? And leaning into, like, to me, it was saying, okay, I'm moving states. I have to go into seasons. I have construction in my house. Everything is crazy. I'm not going to continue doing a show for the sake of it. So I changed it into seasons. Thank goodness for that. I had so much time. I knocked out 10 episodes in 1 week, in 3 days, to be honest. And again, it's possible, right? But then recorded those, and then we moved, and it was like all the things. And moving with the seasons, and I think is really important for podcasters. One thing, Jason, that I'll say, doing the live stream, I used to produce podcasts that were live, and doing the live episode, I've been thinking about it because I used to do a lot of Instagram lives, and I was like, I really enjoy doing live, but I wasn't sure. It's just like the tech. I was like, you know what? I don't know if I want to figure this out. Like, and I had so much fun. Simona hopped a little bit as well. And it was so good to have that. Like, that was one of the best performing episodes. I knew, because it's always like milestones, people want to support you. But I will say that I'm thinking about playing more around with the format of doing live. And I think that as experts, or even just as podcasters, we cannot allow ourselves to just be stagnant and tell ourselves, okay, what would it look like if I once a month went live instead, right, on LinkedIn and had that listener engagement? And it allows you, like, I had a lot of comments live, and I'll also prepare for, just in case there's nothing live, I had like 20 questions that everybody asked. and it was fun. But I mean, how many of us kind of halfway through something feel like, okay, like I'm doing this, but doing through the motions? And I've always owned the journey that I was in. Like, for instance, we moved, or I went to Portugal and I had to create an episode in kind of like a more relaxed way. And I did it more on audio format. And I think that allowing ourselves to have podcast and content creation to be part of our lives and not have them detached. Again, you don't need to tell your life about to listeners, but I mean, I think that so much of it needs to be more symbiotic, and that's definitely the message that I want to get to people. Like, I mean, doing the show with you live here has like reminded me of how fun this can be. Even you're doing a solo. I did solos, but I mean, I think that's like something to experiment. So actually,
look at your excitement right now. Your excitement, it's contagious and it's good, and I like it. So I mean, I would much rather hear you be excited about something than just go through the motions to do something.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I'm saying going through the motions, but I was never doing anything at 20%. I was always doing the 80%. But still, it was never listening to the show. I was like,
should be
good Lord,
fun.
lady.
Well, that's what can grind you down, because if you're doing 100% on something you absolutely hate, you
Right.
just by default are going to continue to resent it a little bit more each and every time you do it. So taking a few seconds to step back and recalibrate and figure out where's the fun. That's why you start this, right? That's why you start anything typically, because you know you're going to get some sense of enjoyment out of it. If that stops happening, you have to take a step back and say, where'd the fun go? What do I need to do to re-inject that into my practices?
Yeah, and I mean, to go through the motions at some point, unless it's really strategic, because I find that podcasting, and probably many of us will attest to this, many people start podcasts and don't want to end podcasts because of the ego element of it. Because it's such a public-facing activity that people say, what will people say if I stop now?
Mm-hmm.
They won't care.
I have the best reference for that. So Tina Dietz, who's one of the founder circle members of the Podcast Professionals Association, she also publishes audiobooks and has a podcast to book publishing company, Olympic Press. Just going to get all that in for the shout out before I tell the story. We had a conversation one time, and this has stuck with me, and I've repeated it multiple times since then, is that if you're an author and you have 5 best-selling books, let's say, or if you publish or release 5 books, everybody's like, oh my gosh, you've had 5 books. That's amazing. You've got 5 books. That's so great. If you've launched, released, and archived 5 podcasts, like I have, then people are like, what's wrong? What happened? What, you know, they assume something broke or that it was broken. And so I just think that again is such a perspective issue that we need to change, that it's not unlike releasing 5 books in 5 different seasons of your life, or 5 different areas of expertise, or writing a fiction and a nonfiction. And, you know, so because a lot of the podcasts that I've done personal growth journey podcasts, I've done creativity podcasts, I've done business growth focused podcasts. Like, those are all things that I was passionate about at the time because I love to podcast. But that doesn't mean that because I didn't continue to do them that they were broken or they didn't work, or that it's just that I moved on to a different reason in a different season. So in fact, I'm getting ready to relaunch the Growth Accelerator podcast back by popular demand. But
Nice.
and I'm excited about it, but I'm doing it again because I'm excited about it, not because I'm like, oh my God, Produce Your Podcast has to have a podcast. Because we don't have a podcast, then, you know, what are we doing in our life? But I just, that whole parallel of 5 books, you're amazing, good for you, 5 podcasts you've archived, what happened? Like, it's just, it's so unfair.
It's
So
no,
good.
to this day, it still blows my mind the difference between books and podcasts. And I don't know what, maybe because it seems like it's easier. The barrier to entry to getting a podcast started is easier than writing a book. But I've felt that too when I contributed a chapter to the Podmatch books a few years ago. The feedback I got from people about contributing that one chapter was through the roof. I'm like, you people realize I got a podcast that has new episodes 3 days a week.
That's way harder to do than write that one
that's
chapter.
exactly. But that doesn't get anywhere near the love that one chapter got. So, like, it's a mindset thing. It really is. But I think it shows that podcasting still has a lot of room for growth because it's still not viewed on that same level as a book, for example. But we're going to get there. I know we are.
Well, the irony is the first podcast that I started, which preceded Producer Podcast was because I wanted to write the book. And I knew that it was much easier for me to show up and talk into a microphone than it was for me to sit down and type the chapters. So I literally started the podcast in order to create the chapters to write the book. But then I loved it so much that I started Producer Podcast and I never wrote the book. And that was 10 years ago. So it was
Talk about an underrated repurposing element of podcasting. The fact that you got the bones of a good book just from your podcast if you repurpose it the right way.
No doubt. Absolutely.
Well, Jason, if you go back on that point, if we go back to what we were discussing earlier, that
time's up.
Yeah, that's your
Yep, gotta go.
9 o'clock.
I have to set myself alarms to remind me to do things. But if we go back to the point of not trying to limit ourselves to a platform, because like you said, we'll get there with podcasting. It's like, well, we're already there. We have shows that run in seasons already. They're television shows. So, I mean, we just have all these different things. If we just go back to just create good content and release it to the people that it's intended for, and I think we'll see more success, and we'll probably be happier.
That's the
And
big
don't
part.
delete it.
Be happy. No, don't delete it.
I know
No,
so many
don't
people
delete it.
who hide their content, who delete it. And I'm like, I heard so many insane stories of like realtors that did a podcast 2-3 years ago and that's still like the number one lead generation for their business. And I'm like, that is insane. Or like someone 3 years, 4 years later messages you and they go, that episode changed my life. And you're like, glad I didn't archive it. You never know. You just never know.
Never know. No, and it shows how far you've grown too from those earlier episodes to where you are now. That's fun to go back. And I know I had an episode this year. I referenced one of my old, like one of the first like 20 episodes of Pod Theory back in 2021. And I linked to the video because it's easily my most viral video. And it's for, I guess, just good SEO, but it's like a 7-minute video of just a photo with audio attached to it. But
I love it.
It works. But nevertheless, that it's fun to see how far you've come. And I know, Anna, I know you jumped on this when I shared it on Instagram last year. I was looking for a document for my accountant and came across my first podcast. And my God, were we so bad at podcasting when we did that show? Like me and my friend were just terrible at it. So I was going to try to figure out a way to introduce that to the world again and say, like, see, keep at it.
Look where you are now.
Right?
Yay.
Like but it's just, I don't know. We'll figure out a way to do that. I think Anna said do a live stream party. That might not be the worst way to
and
do
you
it,
do
so.
live reactions.
You're just going to see my face like this the whole time. But
It'd be fun, though.
well, we're getting ready to wind down here. But before we do, I wanted to ask Tracy, first off, publicly, thank you to the Podcast Professionals Association for sponsoring season 3 of Let's Blow This Up. It's been great being a part of the organization. I know a lot's happened since the beginning of the season to where we are now. What's happening? Tell us, give us a quick 2-minute update on where the PPA is at as we sit tonight.
Yeah, so if you're not familiar with the Podcast Professionals Association, it is the industry's only 501c6 designated trade association for podcast service professionals. And so that's for all of us who are helping support the podcasters and help get the voices out there so we can all change the world and all thrive and survive and grow together. And we just celebrated our official 1-year anniversary. We started out with the Founders Circle the first year, and then we opened it up for membership last year, and we had like a 99% renewal rate from last year to this year. So I'm excited about that.
Who's that 1%?
Let me tell on them, but
people that don't matter.
No, actually, the person that didn't renew, they were in an industry that they are now not in podcasting. So it was a total okay. We forgave them. We still love them. But it's podcastprofessionalsassociation.com. We have a great LinkedIn page, and there are amazing member benefits like the Pod News partnership and having your profile page on the site and 2 virtual networking events a month. And it's just amazing. And I'm so proud to be a part of it.
Me too. I'll see you there tomorrow.
Thank you. Yes, we have a Wisdom Forum event tomorrow. So if you want to sign up and apply, come on. We'll see you tomorrow.
Absolutely. Everybody visit the link. And even if you don't miss or don't get to that one, you get to come to the next one. It'll be a lot of fun. So I'm going to open the floor to everyone to wind this down. Final words as we wrap up season 3, as we put a bow on the co-host collective. We'll go around the horn here. and share our final thoughts. We'll start with you, Megan.
Oh boy.
Well, I know
Final
you're tired,
thoughts.
so I want to get this out of you before you fall asleep.
You know, I am. I'm running out of gas. It's been a long day. I don't know. Keep creating and do what you like to do.
Love it. Simona, I know you're second regards to being tired here, so your turn.
Oh, I still have things like client work I have to do tonight.
Me
because I've
too.
had an absolute.
Yeah.
Oh, you too? Okay, good.
I'm all energized now. These live streams, they pump me up.
I love it. Also like just moved and this room doesn't have any light in it except for the light that's coming from my computer and like my it's not a ring
very
light.
Blair
It's a
Witch
square light.
Project in your room right now.
No, I'm just kidding. I don't know what that was. I just feel like nothing good happens after 8 p.m. for me. But anyways, it's like so dark in here. I'm like, what's happening? My last final piece of advice is I want to say talk to new people. Have conversations. Let yourself be amazed. Let yourself explore new things. Let yourself be surprised. Don't take everything so seriously. Create what you want to create. Share the things that are important to you and use your voice because it matters. And exactly what we were saying at the top of this episode, everything you say and share and do amplifies the energy and the frequency of the world in some way. So figure out what side you want to be on and do it.
Fantastic.
Hopefully the positive way.
How about you, Tracy?
Oh, it's hard to follow that. But everything she said, and if you're feeling in any way overwhelmed, because we have thrown out a lot of amazing tips and tactical insights and opinions. And so just, literally start where you are. If there's one thing you heard throughout the series, if there's one thing you heard even just in this one episode, you just have to do one thing to move yourself forward. So don't get overwhelmed. Start where you are. Pick that one thing that really resonated with you and implement that first, and then the rest will take care of itself.
All right. Final words from Anna.
Well, those were so good, but I will advise everybody to not self-censor. So do not think that you have to wait to invite your dream guests on your podcast. Do not wait that you need to wait. Don't think you need to wait to email for sponsorships, to have a co-host that you've always dreamed of, to go for video. I do think that a lot of people really hold off amazing things because they just don't think that they're ready. But a lot of people are actually more afraid of what happens when they say yes. So give yourself permission to do it.
Right.
Love.
Last but certainly not least, Jay, I'm going to tee it up for you, but also I'm going to ask, do you want the five of us to come join you on your live stream at 10 o'clock tonight?
You are more than welcome to do so.
That is not happening.
So, Megan, Simona, if you're looking to stay up a little longer.
It was already in my calendar at 10 p.m.
Shut my computer. I'm the fuck out of here.
Tell us how you really feel about it. Tell us how you really, really feel about it.
I know
Nothing
Megan
good
had
happened for me after
no
9.
shit.
The Jay Franze show tonight at 10 o'clock, but
There
your
you
final
go.
thoughts, my friend.
Simona said she was going to be there, so
I'll send me the link. I'll be there.
fantastic.
Where does
not.
it live stream? Where should we look for it?
It's going to be going to YouTube. It's on the website, jfranzy.com.
Perfect. Done.
There you go. Do what makes you happy so you don't give up.
Boom.
I
Very
love
well
that.
said. I know that's been echoed a few times throughout the season, and I'm going to
That's
piggyback on that and say that if you're not, now it goes back to what I said before. If you're not having fun, it's something in the direction of your content as it stands. You got to make a change, and you can't get wrapped up in the trends, and you can't get wrapped up what the people over here on Instagram and the other ones over here on TikTok are telling you to do. You got to find a way that works for you. And I know that this season for me allowed me to try a few different formats, but I mean, I've done these formats before, but I think exploring it through this co-host collective with all of you and having those conversations, again, like I said at the top of the show, this has been the most rewarding part of this season for me. I always love these live streams and looking forward to seeing how that will continue in the future as I reshape the direction of the show to some degree. And of course, the solo content, I love that too. For me, it's hard to pinpoint one thing. I just know I love podcasting. So I'm probably of a different animal than some folks out there that aren't leveraging this thing full time. But if you are looking to make a breakthrough in this platform, strategies come up. Make sure you're approaching it the right way. But just have some fun with it. Just try some things. You never know until you actually press record and make it happen. That sounds very trite and cliched, but it's where we are right now. Well, I guess I'm getting tired too. I'm throwing out all the cliches. So, but on that note, I want to.
It reminds me of like when a season ends and like, you know, like when your favorite show comes to an end and everyone is there and like no one knows how to say goodbye. So everyone just like stands there and everyone's like, do we really have to say goodbye? Like, do we really? Can I, Jason,
Now I
can I
feel like
add
we
one more?
Now I feel like we should play the Friends song. Like
I was thinking it, Tracy. That is a show that I know.
Same. They made it in Portugal.
I think we could keep this going. I know that, but I know Megan's right now gritting her teeth, going, "Dude, no, don't."
She's gonna tuck and roll.
I believe you guys can do whatever you want to do.
But before we do wind this down, I do want to thank each of you for all of your contributions to the season, not just tonight, but throughout the season with each of your episodes in the co-host collective. I know, Tracy, you and Jen joined me on a live stream this year too. It's been great. This season's been so much fun. 35 episodes in the archives for everyone to consume. And it's only going to keep getting better and better as Let's Blow This Up rolls on. So again, to each of you, thank you very much.
Thank you,
sir.
Thank you.
And on that note, Bomb Squad, we are going to wrap up season 3 of Let's Blow This Up. I should say, yeah, I guess if you're hearing the audio replay of this, then yeah, this is it for season 3. I will have bonus content coming out on the show here, of course. If you are catching the live stream with us tonight, thank you for your comments from Tiffany and Michael. Anybody watching, thank you so much for being a part of the show. There's one more solo episode that will be live tomorrow for you to consume. I'm talking about things I've learned this season and where the show is going next. God bless you, Megan. Until
I literally thought you were about to say God bless you and good night.
That probably would have been perfect. I dropped the ball on that one. So
Try again. We'll cut it out. No, I'm just kidding.
We can
take
edit.
care of yourselves and each other. The old Springer exit. All right. On that note, everybody, thank you so much for being here. It's been a hell of a ride this season. And until our paths cross again on Let's Blow This Up, on behalf of all of the co-host collective, my name is Jason Cercone. Until next time, stay explosive.